Hi guys, this is Rowan or Joey. I wasn't going to do a video today originally because it's very hot and my nose is not very well. But he has gone to bed, bless him. So I thought I would do this first part of a video series, maybe. The first one is the craft, getting into it and why you should and why you shouldn't. As in, good reasons to look into the craft and bad reasons. I will follow this up with a video about how to start your journey if this is something that you really want to do, and this first video is aimed at saying, well, these are the reasons that I personally feel that you should or should not get into paganism, the craft, Wicca, etc. It's a long road, and it's a lifelong road. It's a lifelong commitment, and a lot of people don't seem to think that it's hard work, and it is hard work. It's balanced off by the fact that it's so joyous it doesn't really feel like work, but you have to be committed to this, and there is no point getting into it if you think, well, maybe this week, because it's not like that. And you fuck with something, excuse me, but if you say you're going to do something and then screw with it, consequences. And you know, that being said, I will go into this in further detail, but if you start with something and you can't practice in the way that you want straight away, so for example, for a while you can't do rituals. Me personally, I started learning properly 2004, and we're now in 2012, so that's a good long while. I attended a group ritual in 2005, 2006. I was only able to go to one, and then my circumstances changed, and it's only in the last year or two, so 2011, 2012, that I've been able to do proper ritual. That's a long time, from 2004, and I was looking into it before then, you know. So it's only in the last couple of years that I've been able to do Sabbat rituals, and there are reasons, but that doesn't mean I'm any less committed. So when I say you have to commit to it, it's something, it's nothing to be taken on as a fad or a joke. It's not a joke, basically. I'm going to tell you some of the reasons why I started looking into it. Things that were part of me, part of my character, part of my personality, part of my quirks maybe. And after I've done that, I will discuss why it might be for you, and then discuss why a lot of people start looking into it for all the wrong reasons. That's not to say they don't end up with some of the right reasons, or the people that, you know, start off with the wrong reasons don't quickly realise it's not what they thought it was. But so yes, so I started getting into it because there were part of me, part of my personality, part of my character, drew me to look for this religion or spirituality or path. I was always very drawn to nature and the sky, the earth and the sky, all the elements really. In fact, I was always big on the elements earth, air, fire, water, spirit, and there was always something about that combination. And you know, you would hear people poo-pooing the Greeks who believed that that's how we were made up, and I thought that was astonishing. I was like, well, we kind of are made up of, I mean, if you think about what we are made up of, you can see the elements working through. And I would get quite irate when people were like, oh, that's such a silly idea. And I was like, no, it isn't. And I loved star signs and astrology and knew that I was an earth sign and didn't like being an earth sign for a long time. Anyway, so I would go out into nature and I would feel connected. And it was more than just, there's a tree, there's some grass, there's the beach. On the rare occasion I got to go to the beach because it's a long way away. Well, not a long way away, but not on the doorstep. So it's difficult to fully explain it, but it's like going and being part of something greater than myself. That nature, you could see the beauty and you could see the divinity in it, in the way the leaves moved, in the way the birds sang, and it was like an overwhelming sense of beauty and perfection and belonging. And I mean, from a very young age I would go and sit under trees and feel more comfortable. I used to like going on long walks and seeing the nature and seeing the seasons change. I was a big fan of seasons. Still am. The Wheel of the Year. It's all about the progression of the year as a wheel, and I love that analysis and seeing how it turns and the seasons change and the weather changes and the trees change. And I've always been the biggest fan of autumn, with the colours and the leaves falling and the bountiful harvests and harvest festivals and Halloween, Samhain. Oh, sorry, it's so hot in here. Not hot compared to America. I'm sure the Americans are sweating much more than me, but ugh. You have to forgive me, I may be sipping water, have not been very well. So obviously there was that. I was always interested in herbs and always thought there was more to it, but couldn't put my finger on it. I've discussed in the past about that I used a silver necklace as a pendulum, and how I did that is I drew a circle on a piece of paper, cut it up into 8 sections. 8 was always my lucky number, 8 with the Wheel of the Year, and put answers into each segment and used a silver necklace as a pendulum. No one taught me that. I just knew it. Let's see what else. I had my natural spiritual abilities, spirit abilities, my clairvoyance, which I mentioned in another video, and my sisters did as well. I always, when I prayed to Mother. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not very close to my own, and it might seem a bit odd, but the divinity to me was female first. Once I got into it and realised that there's a male-female balance, that made a lot of sense, but I was drawn to a female balance when everyone around me was like, God is male. And I was like, okay. So I was interested in a lot of things that naturally sort of fit with paganism or witchcraft, and being a Wiccan, or it's difficult because there's a huge umbrella term and so many different things. But so as I grew a bit older, I was never interested in being, I was the oldest child, I was never interested in being dictated to, and in religious matters this was no different. I was, and I can still be, if I'm not being careful, quite a bossy little mare. And my sister's going to love this, and she's going to post, "Yes you are," all down the thing. But it was a necessary role in my childhood that helped me and my sister survive. And I was an eldest child as well, so it came naturally and whatnot, but it was a necessary role too. But with regards to religion, I was never interested in this sort of, this is the way it is, these are the rules, don't break them. And I was never forced into Christianity or any religion, and you hear a lot of pagans who were pushed into a different religion and felt so uncomfortable and all the rest of it, and I wasn't pushed. It was everywhere when I was growing up. It was all that was taught in RE lessons, for example, and there was the church services at Christmas time, which I hated and still do. I never liked being in church spaces. I thought that, to me, although they're beautiful buildings, from an architectural point of view and a historical point of view, fascinating, but being in them never, to me, sat as being a religious place. I felt more at home, more connected with spirituality and divinity outside, which is a lot of what Wicca, paganism, blah blah blah, preaches, that nature is the church. That you can pray anywhere and you will be heard. You don't have to be in a building to be heard by divinity, and that nobody has more of a spiritual connection with divinity than anybody else. You're not more divine because you're a priest. I don't believe that. In Wicca, particularly, you are your own priest or priestess. You are your. There's no middleman. You know, you are connected. You are birthed from divinity. Therefore, you can speak to them, and they will listen. It's not cut off. It's much more inside as well as outside, and everything is connected. There's not this gulf between one or the other. There were religious draws as well for me to paganism. Celebration, not guilt. And this ties into a lot of things. The Wicca celebrates the Wheel of the Year, and so there are 8 Sabbats, and they celebrate the Esbats, which I'm going to admit to you now, I haven't been doing yet, because I've been getting my Sabbath rituals in order first. And although I have a little prayer, say a little prayer, every full moon, do a little dedication, I haven't been doing it as fully as I want to, and that's my next mission, which I may record. So you can all come with me on my more, that you know what will happen the minute I record it, everything will go so there is this celebration, not this guilt of religion, not this I must go to church, I have to, or I'm in trouble. And it was this idea of celebrating, of festival. I mean, the word festival, joy, cheer, you know, dance, celebration, some jiggly jiggly. I don't know, I sound like a nutter, don't I? Okay. But I really didn't like the way a lot of organised religions were like blaming and you were at fault, and the idea of sin being dictated to you, being told what was right and what was wrong. With paganism, and one of the biggest draws is that it is a moral and ethical path that you have to dictate for yourself. You have to find your own way. You have to find your inner self, your guides, and your connection with the gods and goddesses, and you have to be really honest and say what is right and what is wrong. And you have to govern yourself. There isn't, you know, you know if you're doing something wrong or something morally reprehensible, and a lot of pagans get a lot of flack saying that they're not morally responsible or whatever because they don't follow guidelines. A lot of the pagans that I know, not all of them, there are good and bad people in every walk of life, but a lot of the pagan people I know are more morally structured than people who are not pagan, because they have to regulate themselves, and they have very definite ideas of how they want the world to be. They apply those rules to themselves. A lot of the pagans I know, for example, are vegan. I'm not. That's a lifestyle choice. Live and let live, as far as I'm concerned. But a lot of them are very strict, and they believe that that is a part of their path, and therefore they apply it to themselves. And it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of work to be vegan or vegetarian, because you have to check everything. You can't usually buy things from the supermarket because it has things in it that are not acceptable. You have to do a lot of your own cooking now. I do all of my own cooking, apart from when Nomi feels he needs to cook. So, and that is just one example of how pagans I know regulate themselves. So they put into effect things that they believe are right and wrong. So a lot of people that I know, like there's a lady who is involved with cat charities, and she adopts and looks after cats herself. She's big into the animal, oh goodness, cat rights, and making sure that, you know, they're not abused, and it's part of her path. She speaks to cats, and it's one of her gifts. She's not a crazy cat lady. I've made her sound a bit like a crazy cat lady. She's a middle-aged, not middle-aged, she's younger than that, lady who is married, and happily so, and she has a lovely partner and an awful lot of cats, and I would love an awful lot of cats, but I'm not allowed any. So that's another aspect of her life, where she adopts them and looks after them and is involved with the charities and that sort of thing. So a lot of pagans I know regulate themselves in so many ways. There are people out there who don't, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there are not good people outside of paganism and there are not bad people in paganism, because there are good human beings in every walk of life and there are bad human beings in every walk of life, but that is on them. Live and let live is a big part of my path. If you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. If you don't try and force your stuff down my throat, I won't force your stuff down my throat. I have been in debate with myself for a while whether to start doing these videos, because I don't want to force anybody into any beliefs. I'm empathic, and so is my sister, my middle sister. I'm projective, mainly. I can also sense things of people, but I'm more projective, empathic, and my sister is receptive. And I can, if I'm not careful, project my feelings and my thoughts and my beliefs onto people and can sway people. And it's a very unfortunate gift from both parents. And we know this really, really deeply with my middle sister, because me and my middle sister are very, very connected. When I meditate, I can see a purple thread to my sister at all times. If she's stressed or whatever, I can usually tell and give her a phone call. We're spiritually sisters as well as blood sisters, and we could tell that how deeply I was projective and she was receptive, because of how, if I was in a really, really good mood, and this happened once really obviously that I can remember it, I came bounding into the house, and we share a very similar sense of humour, and I was dancing and being silly and being happy, and up until that point she'd been in a really bad mood, and within seconds, whoop, and it was more than just me coming and being in a good mood, because you don't tell my sister, you know, you don't tell my sister to do anything, and it's just that the energy was transferred, the happy bouncing energy, and she cheered right up and got as hyper as me. And in that circumstance, that's lovely, because, you know, I've pulled her out of her bad mood. But if you think about it, it can be quite dangerous, and because I don't want to force my opinions down anybody's throat. I don't want to force my moods down anybody's throat, and I have to be careful. I have to regulate myself. I have to barrier myself sometimes to make sure I'm not doing it. I do visualizations, and if I think I'm having a really bad effect on somebody, I cut it all. I can just cut my energy right down. And I mentioned in my other video where spirit came at me and I whoop, and it's part of being so strongly projected that boom, and got rid of the energy that was coming at me, and it went for someone else that was close to me at the time. So whilst gosh, the camera is going crazy. Whilst I do have that ability, I regulate myself very carefully, because I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be somebody who forces their opinions down someone else's throat. I've seen what it can do. I've seen how it can be manipulated, and I don't want to be that person. So I regulate myself, and I am my biggest critic. And there is that side of pagans that, you know, quite often they are quite critical of themselves and don't allow themselves as much leeway as maybe they'd allow other people. Right, quickly, moving on, before I go on and on. There's a female empowerment within paganism, as opposed to suppression. I would class myself as a really bad public speaker who keeps going blah, blah, blah. I would classify myself as a feminist, for the pure reason that I believe that women ought to be equal with men. I don't believe in female suppression. I think in a lot of the organised religions there is religious grounds for saying women are less than men. Women are not less than men. Women are on an equal playing field, or should be on an equal playing field with men, and the whole history of women infuriates me. I can get quite on my little soapbox about feminist rights, and I actually posed this to the forum, and a lot of women didn't seem to realise what feminism actually was, and seemed to think that I don't want to be equal with men, I want men to open the door for me. Chivalry is not the same as not being equal. Maybe I'll do another video on paganism and feminism. In fact, I will. I'll do another video on paganism and feminism. It's too hard. Okay. So I don't, you know, there's the joy of being female and male in balance. There is balance within the craft between male and female, light and dark. And when I say light and dark, I don't mean good and evil. I mean the daytime and the nighttime. Positive and negative. There is positive and negative in both light and dark. For example, how is the negative in the light, Rowan? Well, doing bad things in the name of a good cause. Going completely down one end, where you lose all sight of realism. The world is a happy place, and nothing bad ever happens. Yeah. I believe so strongly in protecting myself, in purifying myself, in regulating myself. I know that I have positive and negative traits. And then someone could say, okay, well, where's the positive in the dark side? Okay, well, how about anger? Jumping back to female rights, females got the vote, especially in England, because of the anger at being treated like a second-class citizen. That's based on an anger, on a social injustice causing anger into action which led to a better world. You can find balance and light and dark in everything. And dark doesn't mean negative and evil. Night can be the night time. Look how beautiful a night time is, with the moon and the stars and the mystery of it. Yeah, so it's your own path. You choose where you go, you choose how you structure it. You don't have to follow the rules of some book, you make your own book. I love that idea. When I first started, I was like, I get to make my own book. I'm big into books. It's a lot of studying when you first get into paganism. You quite often hear about the year and a day thing, which is you dedicate yourself and you study for a year and a day and then you rededicate yourself, is how it's done. I think it's in a lot of covens it's done that way, or when you're learning from other people. I'm solitary, so I can't give a huge amount of information on coven things because I just don't know. I've never done it. So as you change and add to yourself, you change your path slightly and you adjust it and you tinker with it, and it's not the same every day, day in, day out, without it's flowing. It's more like a river than a dam. That's how I see it. Paganism is a river. You flow down it, you learn, you curve, you swerve, you question. You're allowed to question. You're allowed to say, read the book and say, well, that doesn't sit right with me. I'll give you an easy example from my path, right? I'll explain this more in detail perhaps in the how-to video, but when you cast a circle, you call the 4 quarters and spirits in the middle: earth, air, fire and water. And a lot of the books will tell you to visualize them like watchtowers or buildings or structures or cones, and that was, and I was trying to do that and it wasn't working for me. And what I do is I visualize trees. So in the earth corner is like a big pine Yule tree, fully decorated, and when I'm calling earth, that's what I visualize. In the air there is a sakura tree, cherry blossom tree, with all the pink and the leaves and the petals, and it's beautiful. And in the fire, maybe a great big oak, full bloom in the middle of summer with the fruits beginning, or a fruit tree. That might be an alternative that I have used on occasion. And in the water, weeping willow with the branches falling into the water. That's how I do that, which is not something I ever read in a book. That's my personal take on something. So I love the fact that if something didn't sit with you, you don't write it off, but you just say, well, this is how these people do it, but it's my path, so if I don't want to do it exactly that way, I'm not going to. And if I want to make up my own poetry, my own spells, my own version of a ritual, you are encouraged. It's your own creativity. You put your heart and soul into there. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. There are plenty of examples you can start with. It's good fun to write your own, but then that's me. So, okay, we're getting quite long. So, why not? What are some really, really bad reasons, pros and cons, to get into paganism and Wicca in the first place? I've got a few down. Right. Anger or resentment or revenge at another person or religion. If you want to get at your parents, so you look into religion, it's so pointless. If you've been part of a different religion and you are angry at it, and you think, I will get back at these people who raised me X by looking into paganism, forget it. It's hard work, it's a lifetime commitment, it's about joy and happiness, it's about self-discovery, it's about balance, it's about so much more than a quick reaction in anger or in resentment to another religion. It is so different from most organised religions for a very good reason. It's not organised as in the same way. I can't even... your anger at your parents... Okay, maybe not, but in my case, your anger as a teenager, for most people, not everybody, because I understand this harder than you'll know, but for most people, your anger won't last that long. It just won't. Okay, you've seen it in the movies and thought, that's awesome. Now, a lot of people get really arsy about the movies that represent witchcraft. I mean, the ones that represent it as being evil and all the rest of it, then you obviously, if you want to get into that reasons, no, it's not for you. That's not what it's about. Okay, but two movies that I'm going to give you examples of that I love, and I think offer some, not all, some nice perspectives into paganism, Wicca, whatever, is Practical Magic and The Craft. I had a really bad experience when I started learning about Wicca in 2004 when a friend, thought it was a friend, went and told this other girl who was more experienced in paganism, and we sort of both looked up to her, that I was basing my religion off practical magic. And not only did it ruin that religion for me, but it really upset, ruin that religion. Not only did it ruin that movie for me, but I was really upset because that's not it. I loved the movie. I thought some of it was beautiful and great, but you know, I wasn't basing my religion off it, and I was so mad. And The Craft, and a lot of people ranted against that movie, and I'm like, well, you know, the lady in the shop? If you've ever seen The Craft, the lady in the shop took the most amount of sense. Magic is neither light or dark. It's in the heart of the witch. Is something along those lines, is what she says. That's so true. Magic isn't light or dark. Nature, it's both, because nature is both. That's a direct quote, and that's perfect as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, The Craft takes some major liberties. It makes up a god, makes it into a male god, which is, you know. But if you think you see these TV programs or these movies, I think you can go poof and create magic, and you can have lightning blasting out of your... No. Magic is subtle. It's a lot like prayer. It's like focused prayer. You use tools to focus your energies that you are putting out into the universe, and you are saying, please universe, help me. And if the universe thinks this isn't something you really need, or you actually need this, then the universe will send that back at you, and you're not going to go, please, I would like some money. And there are consequences attached as well. And this is the other thing. It doesn't make your life easier. A lot of pagans I know have had really hard lives, and they turn to it to help them cope, me included. It's helped me cope. It really has. It's got me through hell and back, basically. But here's an example for all you teenagers or anybody else. My youngest sister started looking at it when it was not really allowed in our house, and me and my middle sister had already been looking at it but not saying anything, because baby sister looked at it because she wanted to perform love spells, and she was a teenager, so she was in your obsessive, pardon me, she was in your obsessive about men, young boys stage, and never left it. And to a weird degree, you know, like an obsessive degree, and she wanted to get into love spells. If you think love spells are a good idea, from start to finish, growing up, before I really was looking into it, I wouldn't touch love spells at all. I thought they were a bad idea. Why would you want someone to fall in love with you who wasn't meant to? Why would you want someone to fall in love with you against their will? Now the only spell for love that I would probably engage in is a general bringing love into your life spell and letting the universe sort the rest of it out. Please bring love into my life. I leave it, the rest, the details, the thing up to you, universe, goddess, god, patron god, spirit guides, whoever. So if you think that, you know, you're going to become a witch and you're going to be able to make every boy or every girl or fall in love with you, it's just not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. And if you think it's part of a subculture, like for instance the Gothic subculture and paganism are very separate. If you know, the Gothics, you can be Gothic and be pagan, you can be pagan and be Gothic, but it doesn't mean that they're one and the same. I mean, if you're interested in subcultures, that doesn't mean you should automatically start reading about paganism and things. If all the reasons that I stated at the beginning have no meaning to you, then this isn't for you. And I'm going to read, to finish up, I'm going to mention this book again. This is one of the first books I read, and it's a really good starting off book. It is Dorothy Morrison's The Craft, A Witch's Book of Shadows, includes ritual spells and Wiccan ethics. Okay, Wicca the religion. I'm going to read you what she says, and this is great, and this really hit a chord with me. The craft is not for everyone. It's not for people with chips on their shoulders or beefs against Christianity. It's not for folks who ride high on power trips or step on others to achieve success. It's not for bigots or braggarts or those too big for their britches. It's not built that way. Neither is it a role-playing game. It has nothing to do with can magic, flying through the air, snapping lightning from your fingertips. You won't be able to walk through mirrors without hurting yourself or make thousands of dollars materialize in the snap of your fingers. And it won't make you able to talk any better while you're trying to talk on a YouTube video, apparently. And no matter how hard you try or how practiced you are, it won't give you the power to turn your enemies into frogs. These things don't happen in real life. It's better left to the movies. The craft instead is gentle, accepting, generous and loving. It's unobtrusive and supportive. It is an ethical way of life. Once embraced, brings immeasurable joy and wonder to every day. And I will quote a bit more from this in the how to get involved video. Again, it's a lovely, lovely starter book. It's one of the ones that spoke to me most of all, and I started rereading it for these videos, and it can still bring something even now, and happy memories. So my finishing advice, maybe, for if you are interested in paganism, Wicca, witchcraft, whatever, is first of all, read. If you really honestly want to start this, then read. Read, and read some more. Look at the YouTube videos, look for book recommendations, join a forum, see what people are about, see what people think about. Don't go on preconceived ideas, because if you want to get at someone, you want to go into this with hatred, you want to go into this with anger, you want to get back at somebody, you want to be cool, you want to be different, you want to be weird. It's not about that. It's about finding love in your heart for the world around you, for the world that you can't see around you, and for yourself. And it is the most rewarding path of self-enlightenment, self-improvement, and hard work balanced with the pure joy it brings. I don't find it hard work now, because most days, some days it's hard work no matter what, but you know, it's for life, and that's what I wanted to get across in this video, the why and the why not. Because if you have to accept that this, once accepted, is you're in it, they're aware of you, you've promised, and it's not just a fair weather promise. So be serious if you are interested. It is an amazing experience, and it will change your life. So that's the stuff. This I'm going to do, hopefully not another 40-minute, well, it'll probably have to be in sections, won't it? But the how to get started video will be coming up later. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry it's 40 odd minutes. Blessed be.